Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I am your Loremaster, here for a special month. No, not for any certain releases, but we are between Book of the Dead and Knights of Last Wall for those interested. No, we are this month celebrating the channel's first anniversary, and lesser so my birthday. So, while I always decide what kind of topics I am doing for each video, this month's videos are going to be that much more personal. So, who is ready to learn about the Firebrands? Well, you and me both. So, after the Pathfinder book, the Mwagni Expanse, and now Last Wall at the end of the month, it has got to be coming down the pipeline at some point, right? Well, if I cannot talk about the Pathfinder organization that interests me the most, I most certainly can talk about the sum of their parts. So let us start these 4, 5, maybe 6 episodes with the rebellion that started headaches for tyrants everywhere, as well as a pre-rebellion remembrance. So let's talk about Sargava, and let's talk about Vidrian. So history part 1. We do not have much history of those who lived here before, and many who were enslaved have lost their cultural heritage, being unable to trace their lineage to any one group of people. Therefore, the history of this area started when the nation of Sargava was founded by the Chelish colonists, who managed to conquer the local lands and make slaves of many of the native Mwagnians who lived here. They built towns, built farms, and similar places for the slaves to toil away at, and subverted the local cultures. Eventually, dwarfs and gnomes came to work as miners in the Bandu Hills, adding them to the mixture of people in the region. But the truest change came with the Chelish Civil War. The colony backed House Davian in their runoff against House Thun. They bet wrong. So the Thuns sent Chelish warships south to try to retake their lands. But those of Sargava paid the free captains of the shackles to keep the Chelish at bay. And so Sargava found itself as an independent country, with pirates the only thing standing between them and destruction. So how did the government of Sargava function? Well, like a colonial government. There were people in charge and no one was claiming land, but in truth it was colonial organizations that held the real power. There were 4 major ones, with one being the Pathfinders. I do not think that needs much exploration. So first up on the docket is the Gold Crown Shipping and Mining. Those who both are were in control of the trade and of mining efforts in the Bandu Hills. Of course, the normal dangers which come from their river trade makes it so they also function as smugglers and spies, if the coin is right. If it instead be mercenaries you need, you want the Iron Cross. Wanted. They're done. Wanted the Iron Cross. If you needed personal guards, the caravan guards, or to run a protection racket, these are the people you were to seek out. Finally, we have the Rivermen's Guild, which is the local Sargava's Thieves Guild, doing ruthless business and killing any competition to their control of the rivers. Anyone who calls rivers home can join, though one needs to prove themselves before they do anything off the books. Of course, speaking of colonization, we need to look at some of the things that poor colonizers had to go through in the unforgiving Mwagni. Which sounds like today's first side tangent, where we learn all about the terrible problems of those who discriminate against others. First, we have the environment as a whole, it reaching 110 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer and stays 75 to 90 in the winter. As someone who is Mr. White Christmas who is Mr. Snow, that sounds terrible. There are also many empty plains like the Mineri, which are difficult to navigate, leading to the traditional image of people dying from dehydration just a mile away from civilization. Moving on to more organic dangers, The bulu trees grow fruit which are incredibly poisonous. Natives know better than to eat them, visitors not so much. And of course there are mosquitoes and various diseases that outsiders have no immunity to. There are also various animals, from lions and hippos to spriggans and charaka, but the most dangerous include the basilisks, dinosaurs, piranhas, and of course, ants. Never underestimate how fast ants can strip one to the bone. But that is all Sargava, and I believe I am tired of talking of Sargava. The citizens of Sargava were tired too, ruled by inept leaders, paying tribute to pirates, being treated like animals. The rage built and built until finally the dam broke as a small plantation outside of Eldar, which spread like wildfire across the city, then across the nation. Descendants of natives, low-class workers who found themselves here, and nobles who expected to still be in charge on their side formed together, quickly turning Sargava into Vidrian. But that was just the nobles. They still had pirates to deal with. But Vidrian traded one naval power for another, and made an alliance with the city of Sanghua. The pirates were, unhappily, pushed out, and the nation could begin to recover. A recovery still happening to this day. Right now it's through commerce that the nation attempts to become stable, taking over many of the old childish businesses, reforming them so that they are actual occupations with pay instead of slavery, and working to both balance their pocketbooks but also repay debts still outstanding. One of the most controversial businesses is the allowance of adventurers into the nation. To many it is too close to old-style colonial looting, but the government keeps the adventurers regulated and ensures guides go along with all trips to make sure no one is tempted to actually take cultural artifacts anywhere outside the country. One added warning for outsiders who are in the area: if you want to screw over Vidrian in any way, you might not want to try to use the Thieves Guild. They played a heavy role in the revolution, and here even thieves pay their taxes. So if you try to smuggle using the Thieves Guild, know that the government will know in an hour. Vidrian is led by the Vidrian Council, a council of representatives from all walks of life, so mostly guilds. Let's do a quick sound off of membership to give the viewers at home an idea of those running the newly freed nation. We have the combined mercantile interests, made from traders, merchants, crafters, and markets who do not get along very well, and they change their representatives often, usually to someone who contradicts the policies of the former. We have the Fields Union, an association of growers of food, and one of the first groups to join the council. There is the United Laborers, made up of all of those laborers who do not work on farms. We have the Briars, who are smugglers and criminals who have aligned themselves with the government. The Independent Bakers of Vidrian, the new financial guild which replaced Aberdarian colonial practices, with lending that designed to actually promote growth for the borrower. A novel concept. Next is the Representative Theologies, which is an alliance of all faiths in the nation. Then the Coalition of Medicine, which is secular healers and alchemists. And last but certainly not least, the Veins, the semi-public spy network of the nation. And as for the people, there are two major ethnicities who call the country home. Well, three. This is also where one will find a few examples of the Songo ethnicity of the halflings. But as for humans, here is the home of the Sargavan and the Vidrian. The Sargavan are the descendants of the settlers and colonists. While those who run out of the country fled to Blood Cove, a fair number who supported the revolution stayed. Some expected power in the government and were majorly disappointed, while others actually were anti-slavery and find themselves being shown the same respect that they show others. Again, a novel concept. As for the Vidric, these are the descendants of those who were under colonial rule. The original identity is lost, so they are now trying to find their own path. They do this by talking about what freedom means, everyone willing to be vocal about it, willing to disagree and respect the disagreement, because they all remember what it was like to not be able to discuss it. Oh, and Vidric fashion, well, it is achieved by wearing traditional Chelish clothing in a way that it is not supposed to be. Tunics without sleeves, trousers with no shirt, and of course the piece de resistance, shackles and chains, broken, so they never forget. So while we are talking about the ethnicities of the Mwagni Expanse, let's take a moment to talk about the other main branches of the Mwagni ancestry, as per Side Tangent 2. You see, to the closed-minded people of Avestan, Mwagni people are just one people lumped together. Yes, they do share some traits, placing high emphasis on learning, enjoyment of magic, and attempts to work modern magic into everyday activities, and so on and so forth. However, there are several different groups which are known as Mwagnian. We have the Backyar, groups of slave traders who survived Earthfall by making a deal with Mephistopheles. They are not needlessly cruel, nor are they all devil worshippers, but are ruthless pragmatists, and always keep to their end of the deal, and expect others to do the same. Next are the Bunawat, who spend most of their time at sea, rarely ever going to shore. They are known for their worship of the sun, the wind, and the waves, as it is what allows their survival. The Moxie moved to the north of the Barrow Mountains long ago, and often try to draw a line between themselves and their other Mwagni kin, preferring instead connections to Osirian or Tuvia. However, the younger generations are beginning to embrace their ancestral homeland. Finally, the Zenge are true tribes, the matriarchal hunters of the Zenje, and the patriarchal gatherers of the Zanju. It is said that they used to be one tribe, but regardless of what they once were, they are currently the most common ethnicity in the Mwagni. On top of those four, we have 5 other minor ones, but I believe they deserve their own mentions elsewhere. Well, except maybe the elephant people, but I like them, so I think they're great, so they will get something one day. Now, a quick note on other nations. The first other powers to acknowledge Vidrian was Absalom, Andran, Osirian, and most importantly, Rovanel. It was the alliance between Vidrian and Rovanel which originally gave rise to the Firebrands, which I promise I'll mention another time. Cheliax had always been looking to take Sargava back, and Vidrian is just an even more wayward version to them. The Shackles were once an ally / loan shark, but the current affairs have them as an enemy which can attack at any time, leading to any form of piracy being more harshly punished in the country. As for other nations, the willingness to work together is mixed. Some are willing to let bygones be bygones and establish trade between their cities. Some others are too hurt by old Sargava to even attempt to trust Vidrian. So now let's move on to places. I divided the country into several sections to more easily talk about the region. First off, Desperation Bay is the name of the bay which is the edge of the sea, and where the Chelish first settled when they sailed in. Most of the largest cities are set along the waters, including the capital. Under the name Eladar, it was a place clearly divided between the wealthy colonists and the poor slaves. Now as Anthusis, many markings of the old regime lie in ruins, and moves are being made to heal the scars of colonization, even if they are slow to heal. Crown's End was home to smugglers and retired pirates, and still stands as a rogue town under the name of Silvertree. Finally, Port Freedom, one of the few cities not to change its name, never really was under colonial control, instead being home of the Rivermen's Guild. Even now, they dominate the area and the surrounding rivers, monopolizing on the ability to ship deeper into the country easily. Also in the region is the island of Smuggler's Shiv, an island said to be the home of many dead sailors and endless amounts of valuable scuttled cargo. Just waiting for anyone who wants to risk going somewhere where no one has ever returned, even inspections sent by the government. While we were at Desperation Bay, on the edge of the Kaava lands, let's talk about the Kaava. A side tangent 3. The Kaava are lemur-like humanoids who live in the Kaava lands, the peninsula just north of Vidrian. They have had an unpleasant past with other humanoids and therefore tend to be suspicious of others. They are willing to talk as long as others do not show any signs of weapons or hostility, but the slightest threat will set the intruder to be attacked by trained black mambas. They are also known to produce a musk which attracts creatures with a keen sense of smell. This has been used to mark colonial equipment or houses, bringing unwanted packs of animals, and some intelligent monsters, to their doorstep. Next we have the Bondu Hills. Here is the home of Fort Bondu, originally created to protect the dwarfs gnome miners in the region. Now it does double duty of protecting the nation's miners, while also being where the nation's growing military is trained. The main mines in the Bondu Hills are the deep treasure mines, mines whose location has managed to stay a secret all these years. There are rumors out there that it's the assistance of Drake or Darrow has kept the location secret, but that has never been actually proven, which it is hard to prove to begin with when you cannot find the actual place. But I digress. However, there is one other point of interest also found here. The Stasis Fields, an underground prison where people of unknown crimes have been locked in prison for who knows how many centuries. The prisoners are Zenge, but I do not think we have any estimate on the original builders of the prison. Finally, we go south towards Mineral Plains, open field which serves as growing land for the original natives, and lands to be exploited by the settlers. The largest city here, and indeed the largest in all of the country, is the former city of Kalabhuto, the current city of Umnyango. This has been a land where the settlers and natives have always been at each other's throats since the original city's founding, and now is one of the places with the largest faith to Walkenna outside of Mazzali, though it is also home to all those who want to escape from him. Freehold was a cattle ranch established with the idea of actually pay and respect towards the workers. Now, as Mineri Valley Cattle Ranch, some say this is not enough and the owners should step down and return the land to their workers. Dark Point serves as a singular inn where adventurers would gather before going out to explore outside the country's borders. Now renamed as Korea Cross Trade Post, which is with its new family-friendly name in working to rechristen itself and get more permanent residents in the area. Finally, we have the area known as the Scotch Fields. These are fields exploited by the colonists, then magically exploited by the colonists, till only scrubland remained. To cure their lands, the locals set it aflame, but it mixed with the magic, leading to forever wildfires in the area. Though those who checked have found that the fields are starting to grow back nicely under the flames, so maybe one day. Now to end this off, let's take a brief look at faith, shall we? Eridan was a faith the colonists had trouble getting the locals to follow, and now with his death and the revolution, his faith is all but gone. Amadar, was decently popular in Sargava. Vidrian has rebranded him as a deity trying to rebalance a tilted scale. Iomade has a decent following herself. The local custom have her in the image of a Mwagni warrior woman. The worship of Semi-Magala, found traditionally in this area, is synonymous with the worship of Gazra and Desna. There is also the local worship of Shaylin as the beautiful lady, and Seminary as a more motherly figure. Special mention goes to the Church of Asmodeus, not because Asmodeus is worshipped, but because the locals kicked the favorite of the colonists to the curb long ago. Many of the local deities of the Mwagni are having their faith restored, though we are not told which ones specifically. And also, the nation is not that far from Mazzali, so the worship of Walkena is slowly spreading into the country from the east. Which brings us to our final side tangent, which is part of the reason we are here. A pantheon unique to Vidrian, the Freeing Flame. I like this story, so let me just tell it verbatim. Local story says that three gods of the pantheon came to the aid of people when revolution came about. Lubaiko, the spark in the dust, provided the first flames of rebellion, literally ignited a cart which caused the first conflict which occurred on the outskirts of Eladar. Then, as the first blow was struck, the fire reached the first cask of ale, creating a massive explosion, waking everyone on the plantation, which is said to be Katie Killian's toast to the events. As everyone came together and watched the first slaves tear down the cruel master, many were too scared to step forward themselves. And so Melania did what she always has and took the first steps forward, and others followed. And so a nation rose up. Now today, the Pantheon stands, encouraging people to free themselves from maladies of the heart, and others from tyranny. Is it any wonder the Firebrands partially found themselves built from these rebels? And that is the beginning of today's video. Half of the founders of the Firebrands, the other half will be coming in a few weeks. However, next week is an actual 1-year anniversary of this channel, considering I could not figure out how to upload a video on week 1. Also the week of my birthday. I will not be posting on my birthday, just at regular time, but I do think I want to celebrate with this month's God video being one of my favorites. And what do you know? It fits the theme. Surprise, surprise. See you all next week.